Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
All right, my friends, welcome back to podcast 45 of 2018. I am your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at the Public Dog, or you can tweet us at the Odds Breakers. If you're looking for a sports book, please visit uwager.eu. Use the promo code TheOddsBreakers for a one-time 100% sign-up bonus. Terms and conditions apply. If you're looking to help us out, we would love to help you out. Please become a Odds Breakers member by clicking on Patron Subscriber at theoddsbreakers.com, and for $12.99 a month, you will get our podcast early, and you will get our premium picks before the line moves. If nothing else, please sign up for our free picks newsletter at theoddsbreakers.com. Well, my friends, I'm back from Buffalo. Had an amazing weekend. College betting wasn't so amazing. I think I was like 6-14 or something like that. I got to double check, but NFL 5-3, and just had an absolute blast in Buffalo. And I'll get into that a little bit more when Dave comes on the show to do fantasy football. Lost my voice a little bit, so I sound a little bit a little bit off this morning. I apologize about that. Let's get into college football recap of week 6. So, Tulsa versus Houston was the Thursday game. And, if you would have told me that Houston was going to have 3 interceptions in the first half of this game, I probably wouldn't have took it. I barely lost this one. Derek King, though, is still a beast for that team. I think he's the closest. He's the actual closest thing to Lamar Jackson this year. So he's extremely fast. He's decently accurate. Houston puts up a ton of points. They play pretty fast as well. So Houston won by 15 points. Should have been more. Georgia Tech versus Louisville. Oh, we all know how to beat this Louisville defense now. The Yellow Jackets rushed for 542 yards. Okay. And I know it's a triple option team and all, but that's just way too many yards. That's like the amount of yards you get after like 3 games and doing well. Louisville's going to go winless this year. They're going to have a big goose egg at the beginning of their record. And it could be bye-bye to Bobby Petrino. That man is on the hot seat. Utah State versus BYU. BYU's not that good. Beating Wisconsin was the exception. Not that Wisconsin's that great this year, and it's not the norm. Utah State's quarterback Love, on the other hand, is very good. Okay? Very good. Nebraska versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin won by 18 points, but was still a very disappointing game for Bucky. They only outgained Nebraska at the end of the day by 15 yards. 533 yards to 518. Not looking good for Wisconsin's chances versus Michigan. I know a lot of these Nebraska yards came at the end of the game, some garbage time, but Wisconsin now lost Scott Nelson for a targeting call. He'll be out the first half. He's the best, one of our best safeties. Dakota Dixon is the other. They might get smoked here by Michigan. There's a chance. I see some points being scored this game. Northwestern versus Michigan State. What was supposed to be a revenge spot for Michigan State quickly became a "this team owns you" spot. Somehow Michigan State outgained the Wildcats, though, by 39 yards and one less turnover, but still lost. The chances of winning the Big Ten for Michigan State just went to very bad. Oklahoma versus Texas. One of the brighter spots in my day was a little bit on Texas. Biggest upset of the weekend, without a doubt. Well, I guess San Diego State beating Boise State was a big upset, but for a Power 5, Texas now has a very legit chance to win the Big 12 here. Very legit. You know, it almost felt like Oklahoma was the better team if you watched the very end of that game. It's just that Texas jumped them. Texas was built to beat teams like Oklahoma, you know. So just remember that. Utah versus Stanford. How did Stanford fall off the train this bad? They outgained Utah in total again by a couple yards, but they had 4 turnovers. 4. KJ Costello has not been protecting the ball. Stanford's hopes are now crushed to win the Pac-12. Notre Dame versus Virginia Tech. Well, this is certainly one of the bigger games that we blew. The first half was going well for Tech, and they ended up kind of blowing the game in the second half, being outscored 28-7. You know, Vatech also had, this is another yards discrepancy. Vatech had 441 yards, and the Irish had 430 yards. Just that the Irish was just more efficient, not turning the ball over. You know, there's just better red zone defense, red zone offense. That's how Notre Dame, you know, did this. They're a very, very legit top 10 team. LSU versus Florida. This was another huge game. The Gators under Dan Mullen are much improved from last year, right? Joe Burrow's 2 interceptions kind of did LSU in a low-scoring game. I mean, LSU schedules is so difficult, you know, so difficult. You got to give them a little pass for this, but you also got to give Florida a ton of credit for this win. Well, let's move into betting spots because that's pretty much all I had time to prepare with for the game's recap. But more importantly, the spots are what's supposed to bring some value to you when you are handicapping your next games. Northwestern hosting Nebraska is a letdown spot. Notre Dame hosting Pittsburgh it could be a really flat letdowny spot, right? Could be. Although Pittsburgh did beat Syracuse, I mean, it's not like it should be a super letdown for them either. Texas hosting Baylor. Yeah, this is definitely a letdown spot. They beat Oklahoma. Now they're going to go host Baylor. Baylor can score the ball. Florida at Vandy is a dangerous letdown spot for Florida because Vandy can score sometimes. San Diego State hosting Air Force is a letdown spot as well. Otherwise, not too many. Big upsets last week. Just a couple, and there's a lot of teams that buy this week too. So get up spots. Michigan State at Penn State. Both teams need to rebound. Both teams lost their last game. Penn State coming off the bye. UCF, I'm going to put that at Memphis. This is their probably their biggest AAC game. And UCF is better than this Memphis team. They need to destroy Memphis and just keep destroying teams in order to be considered a top 5 team if that ever happens this year. Don't think it's going to because they don't have the schedule, of course. LSU versus Georgia. So LSU better get up for this game. Georgia's just been destroying teams too, though. You know, this is going to be a really interesting line when this comes out. Virginia Tech at North Carolina. Yeah, Virginia Tech better get up for this game. I think North Carolina gets some players back after a 4-game suspension, though. So keep your eye on that. Minnesota versus Ohio State. Well, they can get up as much as they can, but it's Ohio State. Virginia hosting Miami. Virginia coming off the bye after the North Carolina State loss. So Virginia needs to get up for this game. And Boston College versus Louisville. Yeah, Boston College has not been impressive. And they really need to get things going. So a lot of people were happy about betting their season win total over now. Now it's a little bit more in question, I would say. 4-2 overall, 1-1 in the conference. Look ahead spots. Like I said, there's not that many big teams are on the bye. So, not a ton of look ahead spots here. But there's a couple small ones. TCU could be looking past Texas Tech to Oklahoma. Both these quarterbacks in these games are pretty questionable for injuries. So, definitely take a look at the injury report before betting that game. And Purdue could be looking past Illinois to Ohio State. Okay. So that's like literally all the look ahead spots that I could find that seem to make sense. Lots of buys, and lots of not too many big games the following week. So they'll be coming up though. They'll definitely be coming up. And Michigan's not looking past Wisconsin to I think they play Penn State. They wouldn't look past them. But there you go. Now I'm going to quickly go through the Big Ten power ratings, the changes. Ohio State, not much of a change. They're still at 26 for me. They almost covered the Indiana spread. It was a super flat spot for them. So no change really. Penn State, no change there. They didn't play. Michigan, I upgraded them a point from 17.5 to 18.5. That Notre Dame loss does not look too bad anymore, does it? Let's get to Wisconsin's next. Downgraded them from 16 to 15. Gave up way too many yards against Nebraska. Too many injuries. Absolutely too many injuries. Michigan State. Yeah, I downgraded them to 12.5. That's pretty much where I have Iowa. Michigan State definitely not looking so good right now. Iowa, actually, no, sorry. I upgraded Iowa to a 13, so they're ahead of Michigan State now. Yeah, they're ahead of Michigan State. I was looking at the wrong thing here. So good job for Iowa. They took care of business at Minnesota. Maryland, I'm taking Maryland down to a 7.5. They fought Michigan as hard as they could, but the talent overwhelmed them. Michigan's defense overwhelmed them. And that pick six at the end blew our spread. That's what happened that game. Northwestern, I upgraded them from a 6 to a 7, beating Michigan State. They just seem to have Michigan State's number. Northwestern's a dangerous team. Purdue. Purdue, I had a bye week. I kept them at 5. Minnesota, I downgraded them a half point from 4.5 to 4. Indiana, I kept the same too. They played pretty well against Ohio State. They stayed at 3.5 points better than the average team. Nebraska, I upgraded them a little bit to a 2 from 1.5 to a 2. They look like they improved a little bit. Still not a great team. And Illinois, I upgraded them for beating Rutgers a half point from -7 to -6.5. And Rutgers, I downgraded Rutgers by half point from -9.5 to -10. Rutgers is one of the worst teams they might be the worst team in all Power 5, but they are definitely, possibly one of the worst teams, including the group of five, too. I think over half the group of five teams would definitely beat Rutgers, so pretty sad for them. But let's move on.